Hello and welcome to the Post Up Podcast. This is Cyrus Rogers.
This is Kaunda Chama. How y'all doing?
I'm hoping that they're really good because they're probably better than the Lakers. Okay, so I went for the jugular straight up, but we've got a lot to talk about in the podcast this week, and the LA Lakers are definitely going to be a central theme. A lot of people are talking about them, scrutinizing, looking at LeBron James. It's been rough, and you're a Lakers fan, Kaunda.
Yes, Cyrus. Look, just keeping it real for a minute. Just a minute.
Let's see if you can handle that.
Look, ever since the whole Anthony Davis trade situation, things haven't been the same. You would say trouble in paradise if we were to use that.
If we were to think that the Lakers half of LA was paradise,
was ever a paradise, right? But look, when a player the caliber of LeBron James joins your team, you feel happy when you haven't played with him because you think we're getting the best player on the planet. It's going to be nice, but sometimes you discount what it's going to take to play with a player of that caliber.
Yeah, that's true.
He comes with a lot of heavy lifting. You know, he brings scrutiny. A lot, but he also brings a lot of scrutiny, and he brings a lot of expectations from you.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people thought, okay, if LeBron could take a relatively no-name brand team, Cavaliers team, to the finals. Maybe he can do the same with a relatively no-name brand Lakers team. But they forgot that was the Eastern Conference. And the Lakers are in the Western Conference. So the conference
is that.
And we always try to say, okay, no, maybe it's just a thing that the West is harder than the East. But over and over again, that gets proven.
It seems to show itself, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people would definitely not, debate with you in terms of the strength of the conferences seems to be a major thing. But I know that a lot of people who talk about the fact that the LA Lakers are one of those franchises who always have eyes on them. And this is just generally the legacy of them. You know, it's the Showtime Lakers. So
the Hollywood team,
and that's it. So how do you then look at it as a sort of a Lakers fan and think, well, everybody's going to be on our backs. We got to support these guys. But then you see the lack of defense, the lack of cohesion. There doesn't seem to be a team unity. Like, what's going on?
Cyrus, let's face facts. Even before the Anthony Davis situation, because I keep going there because that's a pivotal point, right? They had not learned how to play as a unit. First of all,
they were
still getting there. Then there was that shake-up. But if you look at it, actually, LeBron James is a champion. Rajon Rondo is a champion. Lance Stevenson has seen some reasonable postseason. JaVale McGee is a champion. Tyson Chandler is a champion with the Dallas Mavericks.
They've got pedigree.
So they've got pedigree there. But if you look at the young core, they haven't seen the postseason before. They haven't really pushed this hard before.
That's true.
And I think that's beginning to show. But at the same time, I will honestly say from what I'm seeing on the floor, LeBron is not being the most efficient leader he can be. I mean,
it does seem that way. The numbers are saying one thing.
The numbers are saying one thing, but sometimes when you look at it, like, he should be defending on certain plays, and it looks like he's looking at his man to see, I hope he misses. And then when the man doesn't miss, he gets a bit frustrated. Then, it has like a snowball effect. And I think that there's problems at many levels. Inexperience on the young core. LeBron himself, what leadership strategy has he got? Is it really working? Because maybe he expects a lot from guys who need to have their hands held.
And I guess that's true in many cases. I've seen a lot of reports, though, that are really interesting. One of them in particular looks at the plus minuses of who's actually performing in the Lakers team right now. And it goes against what you're saying. Because it says that the young core are actually the guys who are playing well. And when you look at the vets who've come in, they're in the minuses. Lance Stevenson's not contributing enough. JaVale McGee's not contributing enough. They got rid of the Michael Beasleys of this world. So the question then remains, if you're not necessarily getting the best that you can from your experienced guys, then why do you even have them there? And I think that this is where people start looking at it in terms of the Lakers organization has got a bigger problem than just a LeBron James problem. Because you've got a GM who's never been a GM before. You've got a president of basketball affairs who's a couple of years into the job and hasn't necessarily done this before. And it seems to be showing because the kinds of players they've brought in haven't necessarily been the players who could facilitate good wins for LeBron James. You see them starting to make recoveries in terms of the guys they've brought in. Look at, one of the guys they brought in, Reggie Bullock from the Detroit Pistons. He looks really solid. He's playing in the system quite well, so he's a good fit. But is Lance Stevenson a good fit? You know,
But
is Rajon Rondo a good fit?
Cyrus, Rajon Rondo has been in 2008, and I know that was 11 years ago, but he's been all the way to the finals.
All of these guys have been, we mentioned have been to the finals.
But let me tell you, another thing that you haven't mentioned, which I think we should look critically at, is they've got a very inexperienced head coach.
Yeah, that too.
Inexperienced head coach, and I think sometimes his rotations can be questionable.
And I think this is where it is.
And that's where you've got great players. Rondo is a great point guard.
Yeah.
And I know you don't believe this wholeheartedly because of his father, but Lonzo Ball is also a decent point guard.
No, he is.
And I don't think he's being utilized to Coach Luke Walton is utilizing him to the best of his abilities.
And look, there has been a lot of eyes on Walton.
He's managing his minutes, I think, are not good. And I don't want to say that the blame is squarely on Coach Luke Walton, but his inexperience is showing there.
Okay, I mean, look, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a combination of all of these things. You know, Walton, Pelinka, Magic, LeBron, the youngsters. I mean, that's a whole bunch of problems. And this is the thing for me, is that when you look at a franchise like the Lakers, can you even afford to have this many problems when you're trying to get into the playoffs? And right now, as things stand, they are not necessarily in a space where they can be pushing for a playoff place. They're kind of hopeful that other teams slip up.
I think at the moment, Cyrus, that's what they can hope, because what are we sitting on now? 22 games to go for most teams?
Yeah, it's about 22 games.
And, you hope that other teams don't do well. You hope you get that win against the Pelicans like they did in the early hours of this morning, to sort of help you. I mean,
I get that. But this is also an LA team that's looking at number 7 and number 8 in the Western Conference, being the Spurs and the Clippers, and the Lakers are 3 games behind them. Right? So there's a huge swing that has to happen. It's not impossible.
No, it's not
far from impossible. But I do think that there's a heck of a lot of work that needs to be done. And when they're struggling against teams like the Pelicans, you have to start asking questions about what's really happening there. But I, for one, have to ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you think the Lakers are making the playoffs?
I still believe.
Cyrus, still believe.
They've got the best player on the planet. I don't think he will. I mean, he will fight until his sneakers break like Zion Williamson before he lets that playoff positions. The sad part is they might come in at 8, and then they'll face potentially the Golden State Warriors, and there will be a one and done if you can apply it into this situation.
And basically, isn't that it? Because getting into the playoffs is one thing. Yeah. And I mean, okay, just to give you my perspective, I do think they're going to make it. I think they'll probably even go and edge out the LA cousins, the LA Clippers, to get that spot. But when you look at it, the highest that I think they'll go is 7. Because they're about 4.5 games behind the Utah Jazz, who are currently in 6th spot in the Western Conference. I don't see them getting to as high as 6. And when you're in that 6, 7, 8, sort of space, you're up against some really fired up teams. But it's also one of those questions where, if, for instance, you finish as the 8th spot and you actually have to play the Warriors, you got problems on your hands, right? And that's for every single team.
No, you don't got problems, Cyrus. You start making holidays. What do you mean you got problems?
It's like, we made the playoffs, so might as well not go.
Let's just book a holiday, because this is going to be a quick 4 games, and we're out.
But if you're in the 7th seed and you have to face like a Denver Nuggets, do the Lakers think they can't beat the Nuggets?
I think they'll be more confident against the Nuggets than they would be against the Warriors or even the Rockets.
Okay.
Enough respect to the Denver Nuggets. They've got a good squad. They've been playing well. I mean, they held that top position a couple of times during the season. But I think, just going on energy, going on feel, if I was the Los Angeles Lakers, I would feel more comfortable playing the Nuggets than the Warriors.
And look, there is a lot of Nuggets disrespect out there. Let's not get it twisted. Because the thing is that it's a bit like when the Atlanta Hawks finished number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Everyone was like, okay, what's going to happen now? And the postseason comes around and reality comes to pass. Where you're like, that was a great run you had during the regular season. This is the real deal.
Absolutely.
This is the real deal. Okay, well, I suppose, look, to round off the Lakers' conversation here. So we both say that the Lakers will probably make the playoffs. You say definitely.
Yeah, you say probably.
I say probably. I think they'll have enough. I think LeBron James has got enough of that magic to really see what I did there. Magic Johnson. But he'll have enough of that magic to take them into the postseason. Whether or not they have a deep run, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to be out quite early. Whether it's the first or second round of the postseason, or it really comes down to who's bringing the A game when it comes to playoff time.
And Cyrus, realistically, this season, it's only about making the postseason. I don't think even LeBron himself has delusions of grandeur
about trying to win the championship.
He will get anywhere close to that Larry O'Brien trophy.
Well, he's got a couple Larrys himself, so I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll be
There's a couple other young kids who might want to get there and see what they can do. But I think the Lakers are setting themselves up to see what happens come 1 July, because there's a whole bunch of stuff coming when the free agency is here. So we've done the Lakers. Let's talk about one of the other topics that's really, really at the forefront right now, and that's the MVP race.
Yeah.
And right now, I suppose we're in agreement, right? There are 3 candidates who stand out above the rest.
Absolutely.
Right. You name who they are.
All right, so James Harden, averaging 36.3 points per game. James Harden has been balling his Adidas socks off.
He really has.
He is like, this is the epitome of a guy who wants to go back to back.
Yeah, back to back.
I think he went to
MVPs.
see Steph, and him and Stephen Curry spoke about some stuff.
Like, this is how you go back to back.
This is how you go back to back. Just keep firing at all cylinders. Never mind, even when you're not in the game.
Just keep going.
Just give it to Chris Paul. Give him that energy. Then Cyrus, we got Paul George, averaging 28.6 points a game. Look, Cyrus, I always go back to this. When Paul George had that horrific injury, I thought he would never be as explosive as he was before. And he seems to be proving me wrong. He's back. He's really had a great season. And I think he's showing no signs of slowing down. And I think as an MVP candidate, he's right up there. Then we've got the one, you and I, Cyrus.
We love this guy.
We love this guy. We watch this guy. We applaud this guy. He's going to be our unanimous African Player of the Week for weeks and years to go. Even when he retires, we'll be treating him like
African Player of the Week.
Hakeem Olajuwon. Anyway, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 27.2 points per game, 12.7 rebounds per game, and 6 assists per game. He's averaging a double-double.
It's ridiculous.
And he's been doing this for a couple of seasons.
It's ridiculous. And I guess this is the other thing about what happens with Giannis is that some of his stats get lost because everyone else is like, yeah, but have you seen Russell Westbrook? He's averaging a triple-double this season. Yes, that's incredible. But I think, okay, let's start the whole discussion from the beginning.
All right.
Let's look at the current MVP, James Harden. And we say James Harden is leading the league in points per game. 36.3 points per game is ludicrous.
It's insane.
We were talking about it in terms of, they say this is Jordan-esque, and it really is Jordan-esque.
And you see, Cyrus, what we've got to look at it, it's a broad spread. It's not as if he's played 5 games and average. He has played games.
And that's it. So the record just came to an end now, his record streak. Harden had a streak of 32 games in which he scored 30 or more points. And that was just sensational. They didn't know how to stop him. Defenses didn't know how to stop him. In fact, the game it ended with was against the Atlanta Hawks. And if you've seen any of the tail end of that, it was incredible what happened. He was on 28 points, and there was seconds remaining in the game. Normally people were like, no, he's not going to take a shot. But he would want the streak to carry on, and the Hawks just swarmed him. They swarmed him. Kent Bazemore defended harder than in the entire game, just to make sure he doesn't get the 30 points. And so people say this kind of stuff doesn't mean anything, but it meant something to the players. Because Harden would have gone for the shot and maybe made it and kept the streak alive. But the fact that the Hawks players were like, no, you know what, this streak ends with us, says how much this means. And I think that Harden really has been on a tear. Like you mentioned that, the points per game. He's averaging 2.1 steals per game. This is somebody they say doesn't play defense.
That's theft. Theft by public deception.
Okay, there we go.
By public deception.
But if you look at the pilfers, do you know that right now, this is the thing that gets me. Paul George, who's also in the MVP discussion, is known for his on-ball defense, and everybody praises him for being such a great defender. He's averaging 2.3 steals a game. Harden is 0.2 steals below that, he's just doing some great stuff on the
he's
court.
doing some great stuff. He's restarted really rebounding.
Yeah.
He'll be trouble.
Yeah.
But look, with all due respect, James Harden is really playing at MVP caliber.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you say? Besides Russell Westbrook, who went 2 seasons averaging a triple-double, and Steph, who went MVP, then unanimous MVP the next season. I think James Harden is making a big play for that back-to-back MVP.
He really is. And if I'm being totally honest here, and I mean, I hate to be, dismissive of the Greek freak because I'd love for him to win it, but my eyes are squarely placed on James Harden here. And I guess the difference will be where the teams end up. Because when you look at Paul George and how well he's done, that averaging 28.6 points per game is phenomenal.
It is.
But we forget that a lot of his most impressive stuff happens in the clutch. What he's doing for the Thunder when it really is required.
No, Cyrus, I mean, what I've seen from Paul, what we've all seen from Paul George this season, goes to show you why he remains an all-star, why he plays for the U.S. national team. Yeah, so, I think Paul George is one of the best 3 guards in the game at the moment. He has really shown that you can move from being a franchise player, from one team, and then go to another team and play against a very impactful player like Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, you're playing alongside him.
But I love the way that Russell Westbrook, who was accused of being pretty selfish.
Yeah, a ball hog was the word.
A ball hog. And one of our friends, Lee Ngumalo, would be upset.
Yeah, you can't even use those words
ball
next
and
to
hog
each other.
And Russell and Westbrook.
Exactly, you can't do that.
Words. But he's shown that those assists are more than just stats padding.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you have somebody who can deliver like Paul George does. And I think that when we look at it from a stats perspective, you've got Harden as being the number 1 point scorer in the league. But right behind him is Paul George. That's the thing. The 28.6 points puts him right up there in terms of points per game. And he's ahead of Steph Curry, who has also had a solid season and somehow has fallen down in the MVP discussion.
Well, I think Steph has got nothing more to prove in that department. And Steph, I think, is more of a scoring point guard, so his assists are good, but that's not his fault.
But I mean, we're talking about it in terms of points per game.
Points per game, yeah.
But having said that, it's the idea that Steph's not in the MVP discussion. At present, right at the top of the list.
If you've been a unanimous MVP, do you really want to
put your feet up?
You know what I'm saying?
Of course you do.
Why?
Because why not?
Oh, so now, last time everybody voted for me, now everybody plus Lonzo. Really? Come on.
Oh, gosh, I love that. Okay, look, I hear you. I don't agree with you, but I love that, though. And I think that everybody will want to be MVP again.
Absolutely.
In essence, he has the same amount of MVP trophies, this is Steph, as Steve Nash. But he has at least 2 times the actual NBA titles that Steve Nash won.
Yeah.
Because he's won 3 compared to Nash.
So Nash is
Nash
1.5.
0. And anyway, sorry, Steve Nash, we love you, man. But I think this is the thing, and it's weird because I love that comparison, the sort of Steph versus Steve Nash comparison. I'm getting sidetracked totally here.
Yeah.
Because outside of all of this discussion, you have to look at where Paul George is also doing a lot of the hard work, and that's on the defensive end.
Oh, yeah.
And he is the steals leader.
Look, he's a great two-way player.
Yeah.
I mean, defensively, he's great, and I think it shows, like you said, with him leading the league in steals. And what's interesting is that number 2 in steals is his teammate, Russell Westbrook. Yeah.
But they're doing it all at the Thunder, and I actually think the Thunder are the kind of team who really could shock a lot of teams and a lot of fans in the playoffs. And I think that they're the kind of team right now who could give the Warriors a run for their money.
And that's why I love sports, Cyrus. Anything can happen on any given game day.
And now let's keep talking about anything can happen. Giannis Antetokounmpo, can he win the MVP this season?
Like we said, anything can happen. But Giannis, look, what is he now? An All-Star for his third time?
Yeah.
And in his third time, he was an All-Star team captain?
Yep. It just gets better and better for Giannis. And, you can see the hard work he's putting in is paying off because he leads the Bucks in points, rebounds, and assists. And that's just crazy.
Those are to me, those are the 3 of my most important categories.
Yeah.
Followed by steals and blocks. But when you're talking points, rebounds, and assists, Dude, you're literally almost doing it all.
Yeah, well, he's done it, all before. Because you remember there was a season. Was it last season or the season before?
Season before, where he led in five statistical
categories. That's crazy. That was when he was most improved player of the year. This guy is incredible, and so many analysts love him.
Okay, Cyrus, you know we love Giannis.
Yeah.
We love Paul George.
Yeah.
We love the beard.
Yeah.
Yours as well as James Harden.
Oh, thank you.
If the season was to stop now,
yes,
and you had the deciding vote, James Harden, Paul George, or Giannis Antetokounmpo,
it's a tough one because
who gets your vote?
From a basketball perspective, I might just say James Harden because I love him as a scorer, but I'm an African. How am I going to go against Giannis? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for keeping it real.
But I think the thing for me here, right, is I would love to have... In fact, let's put it this way. Here's another way to look at it. Okay. Giannis deserves to be MVP. It's not... He is leading the Milwaukee Bucks to the number one spot in the East. This team weren't even anywhere close to that last season. And look at the change that this has made in the team. It's not all on Giannis. Coach Bud has been there. The players they brought in worked well, and the system's working. But Giannis is pivotal to this happening. And without Giannis, the Bucks aren't doing this. Then you look at the numbers and his dominance in the games that he's played. I think that gives him a very good edge. So this is the thing for me. I'm saying all of this so that it's like the padding for what I'm about to say, right?
I can feel it coming.
I'm gonna unleash something really crazy here. But if you gave Giannis the MVP trophy, I don't think there would be a lot of people who turn around and say he didn't deserve it. And that's the thing for me, because my head says James Harden is the MVP. But if Giannis were to win it, I'd be like, yeah, that kind of makes sense too. And that's the way I view it.
So your head says James Harden, your heart says Giannis Antetokounmpo.
My heart says stay freaky. You know?
Well, moving swiftly along.
But you haven't even said, so who's your pick? You can't just leave me out to dry.
Look, Cyrus, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to stay with the numbers. You know, I'm always a numbers man.
Yeah.
And I'll go straight James Harden. If the season were to end today, I had the deciding vote. He is balling out of control.
Yeah.
I mean, give or take a trouble that's not seen here and there.
Just because he has a passport doesn't mean you have to hold it against him.
James Harden is playing at MVP caliber, non-stop. And at a certain time where Chris Paul was out with an injury, he just drove that rocket ship, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's performed. How? 30-plus point games.
Yeah,
I mean, how?
in a row, consecutively. It was ridiculous.
That is, he beat Wilt Chamberlain, right?
Yeah.
He built Wilt's record. You know, everybody tries to beat Wilt's record.
So you're saying he beat Wilt Chamberlain?
Yes, he built Wilt Chamberlain's record, and everybody's trying to beat Wilt Chamberlain's record out there.
In any place that there's a record, you're like, nah, you're not gonna beat Wilt, and then people are going and they're really going for it.
Yeah.
But I think that, look, you mentioned James Harden as being your pick, right? I can't mess with that because I've said the same thing. But if there were a number 2 MVP or a 2 MP,
yes,
Giannis, right?
Straight up Giannis. I mean, enough respect to Paul George. Paul George is balling his socks off, but I think...
You can't say that phrase more, can you?
No. I love what he's doing. Look, Cyrus, there was a time when I was like, I'm watching Russell Westbrook. You know, I would watch the Thunders specifically for Russell Westbrook. Then Steven Adams sort of like caught my attention. Now they've got the big 3.
Yeah, Paul George is doing his thing.
They've got our Gambian German guy,
Dennis
Schroeder. So, and he's brought back the, what did he call it, the gold patch? He brought back the gold patch after it went missing. So I'm like, yes, do your thing, Dennis. But James Harden gets the 1 spot. Giannis gets the 2 spot, and I'll give Paul George the 3 spot.
Okay, I see you. I think let's round out the discussion today with a talk about, we've already talked about the Lakers. We talked about the problems that they're facing. We've spoken about the MVP conversation. But I think we have to talk about the Boston Celtics because we would be remiss if we didn't. And we've mentioned Giannis, we've mentioned the Bucks topping the East. I do think that in the next podcast, we've got to talk about whether or not we think the Bucks are going to take the East, because I think they're going to finish as the number 1 seed. But the Celtics, can they afford to have the season that they're currently having right now? Considering that if the season were to end today, and they finish in the position that they're in, which is 5th place in the East, they are game and a half, two and a half games behind 4th place to 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have home court advantage at any point in the playoffs.
Look, I believe in Coach Brad Stevens. For some reason, maybe it's because
I like Brad Stevens
for Basketball Without Borders Africa.
It might also be because he's a good coach.
And he's a fantastic coach, to keep it real. And I think he always has a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, last season, look what he did without his 2 main stars. And I think, much like the Lakers, there is lack of cohesion. There is a disconnect within that team. You've seen there's been some public disagreements between teammates. There's been stuff said in the media. And that affects the morale. And I think the Celtics at this moment, they're just not together as a unit, I mean, and I do understand sometimes if you're a Terry Rozier, you did so well last season, and now you have to play second fiddle. It's not a happy place to be.
True. You bring up some really big points here, but think of it this way. At the beginning of the season, a lot of us, and I think us included, would have tipped the Celtics to win the East. They are currently 10 and a half games back from the Bucks. That
10 and a half.
is insane. That's insane.
Look, Cyrus, let's also look at the fact that although we speak about the East not being as competitive as the West, but the East has bulked up.
I think teams have definitely done this.
If you look at what happened with, Brook Lopez going to the Bucks and the Bucks beefing up, and Kawhi Leonard leaving the West, going to the Toronto Raptors.
Marc Gasol at the Toronto Raptors.
Now at the Raptors. Okay, the Indiana Pacers have been on a tear since last season. Remember, they even gave the LeBron-led Cavaliers a good run for their money last season.
They definitely did with Victor Oladipo.
They almost beat them in the postseason. Now they've lost Victor, but still they seem to be pushing. Philadelphia 76ers
got a great squad.
They've got a great squad. Now they've got Jimmy Buckets and they've got Tobias Harris. So
to go with your Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid combo, as well as JJ Redick.
And Boban Marjanovic. So, that is not a bad squad. So the Celtics find themselves in a very tricky position where it's not that easy in the East anymore.
That's true.
If you understand.
But let's also
look at the 4 teams above them.
But the Bucks are making it look easy because apart from the Raptors, who are 2.5 games back from them, the Pacers are 7.5 games back from the Bucks. So it's not as if the Bucks have just managed to get it done the right way.
Absolutely, but I also think that the East is becoming competitive. If the Brooklyn Nets are in 6th position at the moment, that talks a lot.
It says a heck of a lot.
Do you remember last season the way we would crack jokes about the Brooklyn Nets and the Phoenix Suns?
I think even the Brooklyn Nets would have been cracking jokes. But
look
credit to D'Angelo
now.
Russell and what's happening with that organization. I also said to you at the beginning of the season, I feel the Detroit Pistons are going to be in the playoff mix. You were skeptical.
Very skeptical.
But I had faith in Blake Griffin and former coach of the year, current coach of the year, Dwayne Casey. But the Charlotte Hornets being in the mix is also surprising.
It's incredible, man. They hosted a very great All-Star. I think
they did.
They deserve to do well. But one team that I spoke about that you laughed at was the Orlando Magic. And as you can see, they are right there.
They're not out of it. They're not out of it. And this is the East. But this is also where you start looking at the East going, but the East though. But to go back to the Celtics, and I think this is the point that we want to end off here, is that the Boston Celtics are going to make the playoffs, no question. I don't know if they're going to climb up to like a 4th position. They don't have the time to make up so many games to get above maybe the Pacers. There's 20 odd games left, but you need these other guys to have a bad season, and I think bad rest of the season. And I think that the Celtics are going to have to pull things together, and Kyrie Irving's going to have to find a way to play with his team rather than with some guys he knows who wear Celtics jerseys.
Yeah, because the Kyrie Irving narrative, Cyrus, cannot be ignored in this situation.
It can't.
Because the whole LeBron apology and the sentiment about the youngsters not respecting him or not understanding.
Not living up to what is expected.
No, not understanding how much weight you have to carry as a leader. You remember that?
Yeah,
that was the message between the lines.
Yeah.
When he called LeBron. So that tells a lot.
But this is somebody who did that to LeBron. Surely he should know what that means to the other kids who are listening, going...
That's why he was trying to tell them, Cyrus, that you must understand, I've done this before. I was you. So I'm trying to tell you now that, no, that's not the way you do things. Don't make the same mistake I made and wind up leaving the Cavaliers and breaking Kevin Love's heart. But we're not going to go in there. But, that was the big three.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this is the crazy thing for me, because they've got so much talent. And the thing is that they've got this talent, but they've got to be able to utilize it. And so when you look at the Celtic situation, possibly some of the players are thinking, but my head's still on the chopping block here. Because come free agency, we don't know what's going to happen here in Boston. We don't know what's going to happen with our contracts. Where will we be playing? And there might be that level of distraction. Because although the Celtics didn't get involved with the AD thing at the trade deadline now because they couldn't, everybody knows that come 1 July, things are going to change. Jaylen Brown might leave.
Yep.
Jason Tatum might leave. Marcus Smart. Smart is probably going to stay. But they've got so many players who could really be up for grabs that they don't even know if Kyrie's going to stay.
So Cyrus, I'll ask you a question before we close this off.
Yeah.
Because the Boston Celtics are packed with talent. Is there a possibility that they've got so much talent that it's causing noise?
I think that it is possible, but it shouldn't be the thing that causes the problem. Because right now, that means that that's a Brad Stevens issue that he can't solve. And this is somebody we've been lauding as one of the best coaches in the NBA.
Absolutely.
He's got to be able to look at his lineups and say, you know what, maybe I don't change things up so much. Maybe I just say, Gordon, you don't get as many minutes, but we're trying to get you to become the leader of the second unit and then work around that. Or you just say, fine, everybody, you find a way to deal with it and we'll get to the playoffs. I don't see the way forward if either of those are the routes to take. The Celtics have got to look at these guys. They've got to lean on the likes of Al Horford and say, Al, you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Help these guys understand what it takes to be a player, a unit again. Because when they were doing it in the playoffs last season without Kyrie and without Gordon Hayward, they found that unity. Why don't they have that now?
Maybe too many bulls in the crowd. I don't know. Because they are packed with talent.
Yeah, they are.
They've got 5 players at least that could be all-stars.
Yeah.
Who are not all-stars there, that you can count.
Yeah, that's
Jason
true.
Tatum can be an all-star.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown can be an all-star.
And I agree with you. And then you look at the others that could, they're on the verge of being somebody special. Yeah. Well, Terry Rozier needs to do a little bit more, but it's possible.
But you saw him be the main point guard last season, and he was there.
Then we've seen him this season. And
it's Kyrie this season.
But I get what you're saying in terms of the talent that he has and the ability. Look, I think that there's a lot of stuff that they have to deal with there. Brad Stevens got to get it right. Danny Ainge's got to get it right. And they've got to go out there and do what's best for the Celtics. I'm looking forward to the playoffs because I think that they're going to be a major deciding factor as to what happens in the East.
Cyrus, these playoffs are going to be explosive. On
They are.
both ends of the conferences. It's going to be crazy.
But
we're going to be
is.
loving it.
Yeah, and so make sure that you are listening to the Post Up podcast, tuning into what we have to say, especially from an African perspective. Also engage with us on Twitter and on Instagram at Post Up Podcast, at Post Up Podcasts. Yeah, even enunciated it there. I couldn't even say enunciate. But yeah, we got there eventually. But thanks so much for listening, Kaunda.
Listen to our podcast and tell a friend.
Tell a friend, phone a friend. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.